to Wargaming World and to an upgraded table. We're back to France 1940 and for a game of Nuts. And so this is the scenario we're going to play. We have two German sections, or German squads I should say, rather than sections, advancing down either side of these two roads, the other side of the town, towards the centre here, and where they may well encounter some British forces which are just beyond this, with our PEFs that you might be able to see here, one in this centre of the village and two just behind the buildings there. We've got two German squads, two full squads, so that'll give us 10 men with an NCO with a submachine gun, and we'll have an MG34 for both of these squads. And then in the centre we've got our main command, and this is going to be a character here as well. So we've got a couple of rifles, we've got the main commander, which is going to be myself as the character there, got a radio operator and a medic. So each of the German NCOs, including the medic, the radio operator and the NCO here, we're going to roll and see what characteristics they've got. These will be the grunts, and then that'll have one attribute. And then for my character, we're going to have one skill and two attributes. Finally, in terms of the rep of the German forces, they're going to be a 4 unless I roll a 1. It'll drop to a 3 or a 6, and then they're going to be a rep of 5. So let's have a look and see what skills, characteristics this squad has. So firstly, we're going to roll for the first squad, and let's see its rep. I've got a 2, so it's going to be a rep of 4. Second squad, I've got a 1. So the one nearest to us here is a ill-fitting unit, and unfortunately that's rep is just 3. Let's have a look and see what the NCO is going to have in terms of an attribute. So the green dice is going to be the table, and the black dice is going to be which skill. So we've got table 3, skill 6. For the original section, this is the one with 4 as a rep. Same thing, so we've got table 2 and attribute 5. Now let's check out the medic, and that's table 6 and attribute 2. Radio operator, it's going to be table 5 and attribute 6. My character, we're going to say we've got one skill out of the original 4, so we're going to ignore 5s and 6s, and it is skill, or star skill number 3. And we're going to have 2 attributes, so it means we're going to have table 5 number 2, table 2 skill number 4. Now, as you'll know, the table is split out into 9 sections, and so we're going from here on the left hand side and all the way across here, and we're going around about as far as the edge of the cemetery and the church in terms of looking at that for the area. So we're not really going as far back as the back of the railway station. You'll be able to see just at the top there. And you'll actually see already that I've rolled to see where the British are, so our PEFs. So we've got 1 here in the centre and 2 there behind that particular building. So just before I start, I'm going to mention again that I've upgraded the tabletop, and I've done so by including a lot of fantastic roads which have come from early war miniatures. So Paul Thompson has made these great roads, painted them, and really it goes all the way around the village, all through it. And we've got a whole combination of whether it's roads with pavements, or turns onto sort of country roads, and then wrapping around here with some lovely features such as the bends in the road, and then to our centre with the town hall there and the monuments. So, on with the game. Okay, first turn, let's see who operates. Okay, so the two squads move forward. The main character is staying in the centre, observing what's going on so far. So the PEFs didn't move, so we'll go to turn 2. And again, the PEF don't move, but the Germans carry on as they were. Note that we've got a 4, so this squad here wouldn't operate other than the fact that its leader has a command of 4, pretty much as we were. We've got an advance here on this road, and opposite, the Germans continue to advance. The main sort of character units are moving on this side into the centre of the town, and as in the first turn, PEF hasn't moved, so we move to turn 3. Now the PEF can move, and the Germans can't. So we've got 3 units, but we'll start with this one. So let's see how it moves. So we've got 1 passed on the rep of 4. With that, it doesn't move. We've got our 2 there in the background, so let's roll and see where they go, if at all. The nearest to us, we have 2 passed, so it'll go 8 inches towards the enemy. Behind it, 2 passed again, so they'll both go towards the enemy. They need to remain in cover rather than being in the building. They are still in cover, they can't be seen from that spot, so that's the end of turn 3. Turn 4, and this time it's just the Germans moving. Right, we've got 2 potential lines of sight, 1 here, and the second is here. Now here we're actually taking 2 tests, because the German at the front there can potentially see 2 PEFs, so we're going to roll 2 tests and see how many times he passes his rep of 4. At 2 in both cases. Now let's see what's waiting for them. Well, we could say 1 is a defensive unit, and the other is a standard unit. We look on the reinforcement table. First of all, we'll check the first standard unit. And that's a 1. Got 1 British section with a support weapon. For the 1 in defence, we've got a campaign factor of 4, -1 because it's a patrol game. Let's see how many we pass, and none. We've got a squad in cover, so I think we've got 1 squad in the building and the other one out in the open. Let's test here. And that is a pass of 1. That means there might be troops there, we don't quite know yet. So what we're going to do is next time we test with this, we count the 2 lowest dice and roll 3d6 rather than 2. So we've got 2 British sections, so we're going to have 5 men as well as a Bren gun, plus how many other units? So we've got 5 in one, 3 in the other. So we've got some strong sections there. Unit. See if that's the one in the building. 1, 2, 3 it is. Yes, it is. For support, 1, 2, we're going to say it's a boys anti-tank. 3, 4, it's a mortar. 5, 6, we're going to get a Vickers machine gun. And it's a 6. So I've just moved the building slightly just to show that we have, first of all, a defensive unit inside those 2 buildings, and then we also have the unit here, which is essentially on patrol. So what's happened is that as they advance on patrol, they're leaving that unit that are in a defensive position and have made contact with the Germans there. So let's have a look at the insight test and what happens. Okay, green dice are the British, and both teams pass 2. Now, because they've both got the same score, I'm going to say something that I think is realistic, is that the German will react, seeing the volume of the British on that side, and will duck back. We then need to test what happens in terms of the non-player, in terms of the British, about how they will ultimately react. This is where the German has ducked back to. So let's see how the British and Germans react at the start of the new turn. And so the British can't act because it's 5, so it's all with the Germans to see how they want to move, knowing that we've now got some British ahead of them. Okay, so the Germans are going to act, and the leader here is going to order the squad into the town hall as quickly as they can. So they're going to have to move fast to do so. So we're going to have a roll and see how quickly each one of them can do that. So that the first 3 can get into the building, and they've done so by taking some kind of cover close enough to the original building. However, the others, we're going to have to roll to see if they can get there. They're running, and they're really sprinting rather than thinking exactly where they are. So I think there's going to be an insight test also. First rifleman, against his rep of 4, he gets there, or he can go up to 12 inches. Let's see how far he gets and at which point is he seen. It's also going to roll for the other 5, the blue dice being the NCO. So he can get far, but 2 of the, I'll say the 2 riflemen at the back, or actually it's the machine gun that is at the back, are delayed. So this is where we've got to. We've got some of the Germans here just going up towards the steps. They're seen by the British, so we've got to do an insight test. And the MG team is the one that's delayed, and it's trying to get up there as quickly as possible. The insight test, I'm going to do the same here in terms of moving quickly, but my character also moves fast, so if he is successful, he can go 15 inches. My character, anything but a 6, that's fine. I've got 4 other men, all with a rep of 4, so we're going to say red is the medic, green the radio man, black is one of the 2 rifles, and it's he who is the slowest. This is essentially where we finished. As troops advance again, they see a potential enemy, and this time we're going to roll 3 dice. And so we've passed that 3 times. Where there are troops there, and let's just see whether they're in a defensive position. No, they aren't. Still a patrol. So let's see how many passes we have. It's just the 1. Right. So because we've already got the British in play, actually we just remove this PEF, and there's no further action. So just before I actually work out the action over here, just with the British, just to say that the way the game is playing out now is that we have the Germans advancing down these 2 roads, okay, and the Germans thought that there were British here across this square, but there weren't. And in fact, the only British that there are at the moment is in this defensive position here. So we're now essentially going to move towards more of an attack-defence game, with the Germans attacking this building, depending on how the British react, really. So let's see how we go with the next insight test. Rep of 4 for both forces, and both of them pass with 2. Well, the British are static, therefore they will react first, and we'll fire at the Germans. Right, so to be specific on who's firing, we're going to say the rifleman on the left-hand side, the Bren machine gun, the rifle on their right-hand side, and then the next right. So essentially it means it's going to be 3 rifles and a Bren machine gunner. I'm not going to use the rifle on the further right. I'm going to say the angles aren't particularly good, so it's going to be 3 rifles, 1 Bren machine gun. The target is these 3, so I'm going to say it's the rifleman to each of them, 1 to 1, but then the Bren can fire, I think realistically, either across all 3, or it'll be the NCO and the rifleman at the front. First rifle firing, 2 hits. I should say that's a 2, So 2 passed, which means it's a hit. Rifle firing. 1 hit. Now with a 1, I think because they're moving fast, I think he'll duck back, which is why I've marked it with the red dice. Finally the NCO shot it with the rifle. Same thing, I think that's going to be duck back. The Bren fires, I'm going to say it can hit all 4 there, so we're going to have 1 dice on each. With the man furthest back, that's going to be 1, which I think is going to be duck back, because it's going to be outgunned. It was originally hit by rifle fire, and is hit again, furthest forward. That's another duck back. And the NCO, same again, duck back. Right, so I've got those 2 dice on there. They're outgunned because it's going to be the Bren machine gun firing. So those 3 are all going to duck back, but we're going to have to see about the man who's now been hit twice to see what happens to him. The man hit twice, essentially need 2 3s or lower. And no, actually he's out of the fight, and he's just knocked out. So you can see the man's down. We do have a medic actually, so we can see if he can patch him up, but he's gone down and the 3 around him are going to move, and we'll also have to take a will to fight test. Of the 3 men here, the 3 men nearest to us, we're going to do a will to fight test. They're above 50%, so we're going to use the leader's rep, which is 4, so essentially just need to avoid getting 5s and 6s. And that's fine, we're just going to carry on. See at the end of that, the 2 have managed to take cover, get into the building. 1 man who's out with the fight, and the other man who took the test had moved backwards in terms of cover, and that's the end of the turn. New turn, and both the Germans and the British can act, but we'll need to roll to see what the British do. Okay, so the Germans have moved up further, but now I've heard the firing. Part of the squad, the rifle section, have moved towards this building, and the MG34 have been ordered to move further up the road, see if they can get a better firing position, perhaps with one of those 2 buildings. Out here have been moved, ordered rather, so I'm going to move them into the next room, see if they can get to these windows, see if they can start firing ultimately down onto the British here. My character now orders the MG34 to take some cover behind the tree and begin to give supporting fire, supported also by the 3 rifles around them. Medic runs to give aid, but unfortunately can't reach the man on this activation. This is where we are. I'm going to do some firing in a moment, but as well as to see what the British actually do. So we've got the Germans in position by this tree. You're going to fire the MG34. We've got the officer here, and with the radio operator, just in case we need to call in mortar fire. The medic, as I say, moving towards the injured man, and we've got the rest of the troops there up in the window, so we're going to need to do some activation there. See who fires first as well. Anything else? Because the British have been activated, we need to test the 2 units. One which is already in a defensive position in the building, and the other in front, which was on patrol. Let's see what their reaction is to what's happened so far. The section who've been doing the firing. Okay, so that's 2 passes on their rep. So as a result of that, they will take up a defensive position. Unit in the building. That's 1. I suspect they're going to stay exactly where they are. Right, so to get in a defensive position, the corporal orders part of the section over the road towards these 2 buildings to get to a defensive position, and the remainder will engage the ones who are now Germans, who are going to fire out the window and further down the road. So let's see who's got the various insight success. Now I've moved the tree out the way of the Bren team just to show that we've got line of sight between the MG34, the Bren team, and all of the rifles. So let's see who's got insight advantage of each other. And that's exactly the same. Roll again on that, and we'll find ourselves in exactly the same position again. So unlucky. And it's the British who have the advantage. However, Does a double one mean that we run out of ammunition? I need to double check. Well, in fact, what I've realised is that we can use the leader, the rep of the leader, which is 5. So I'm going to say it's the same because we've had it 3 times. I'm just going to say they're firing at the same time. So we're just going to have the casualties that impact each other simultaneously. Okay, I'm going to have 4 rifles onto 4 rifles. So let's start with the Germans firing at the British. So we've got 2 1s and 2 2s. It means that 2 of the British will duck back and 2 are hit. Let's do it the other way around. British to the Germans. And all 4 of the Germans are hit. The consequence to the Germans, 2 are fine and 2 are knocked out. Consequence to the British, 2 are knocked out also. I need to work out the machine gun from both parties. The Bren gun from here and the MG34 from the Germans first. And that's certainly a hit. And that's just a 1. The Germans are not outgunned and they are in cover, so therefore, although we would fire back, let's just work out the first round of things. And we're just going to stick with seeing the impact of the German firing at the British. All 4 of the British are in target, and in fact 3 of them then would be knocked out, 1 surviving. And so the MG34 has been devastating. Although they aren't killed, there's a lot of wounded men there, and so we need to have a will to fight test, most certainly. The will to fight test of that individual, and I think that's only the 1. He's at half strength, so I think he's going to need to leave the fight. I'm going to say with all the casualties there that the Vickers machine gun behind that unit can see, and I'm just going to fire also. Target for the Vickers machine gun, and that's a 1. So I'm going to say that that unit is going to fire back. So let's see what the outcome of that is, and that looks like a hit to me. 3 men are hit, but they're fine, and I think they'll return fire. And again, that's going to prompt the Germans are in cover, so they're going to fire back again. This time it's going to be a 1. British are in cover, but I think with that exchange the British are going to duck back. So I think one thing that we can do here is that the Germans are going to fire out of the window. They've got a couple of riflemen who are able to do so and fire at the British here, and the British will fire back if they wish. Fight test first of all. The Germans are they're quicker, so therefore they can fire first with the 2 riflemen. Rifles firing. 1 looks like a hit. I need to check what a double 1 means when somebody shoots. I'm not altogether too sure whether that means somebody's out of ammunition. And the other is just a 1, but the British are out in the open, so that's going to be a hit. Well, unusual as it might be, I'm going to say that actually he's out of ammo, so one of them can't fire, the other can, and it's a hit. The result, it's a 1. The British is fine, and they're going to fire back. 4 out of 5 men are going to fire. And exactly the same's happened. 1 has run out of ammunition. 2 of them have got a 1, but the Germans are in the building, so I'm sure they're going to be fine. 1 is a hit, though. Stick to the 1 that is a hit. And he's fine too, and he's going to return fire. Returns fire. It's a 1, so it's going to be a hit because they're in the open. And he's knocked out, so one of the British is knocked unconscious. British will to fight test, and that looks like that's a 1. They are more than half numbers, so they're okay. So at the end of the turn, that's been pretty devastating for the British. They've been hit hard by the MG34, and now as they potentially move into cover of these buildings, the Germans on this side are also looking at the same buildings for their own cover, so we might have a bit of hand-to-hand combat. Well, for the Germans, we've got also some casualties of men knocked out. I've had a couple of the unit duck back as well when they were under fire. However, they've now with the machine gun team ultimately knocked out the British, so the Germans can continue to advance. Right, new turn. And both can operate. The MG34 team will want to fire down the road at the British. Both have passed in terms of they can move, so I just want to see who actually has the initiative, because the British will move out of the way and duck into cover, or indeed they might fire in advance, but I'm not quite sure who has the initiative, so therefore I suppose I'll have to roll for it. Before I do anything, I'll just need to see what the non-player enemy does. I think that's the most realistic thing. So let's see what the British would do. So we pass with 1. With that, actually, the unit would take cover, so it's a realistic thing that we're going to do. First of all, we need to see who's got the initiative. Use the leader for this, for initiative. And well, again, it seems fairly simultaneous. So because the Germans would have potentially other targets, I think I'm going to give the British the benefit of the doubt here. I'm giving the British the benefit of the doubt because with this unit the Germans actually can move into position here, and the Germans, and the British rather, are a target. There's also this rifle squad here. They're going to move into this particular building, so we're going to need to do an insight test between the British rifles and another MG34, this time in position on this side. And on this occasion it looks like it's going to be equal, because remember the rep of the Germans here is 3 and not 4. Let's test once again, and this time it's the British who have the advantage. 4 of them are firing at the Germans who are in cover. We've got a miss. We've got 2 1s, so the Germans would return fire, but 1 hit. That's fine. So I'm just going to roll. If I roll on a 1, it's the actual MG holder. It's not. The rifles. What's the consequence of being hit? Nothing. Is just going to return fire. Fire with the MG34, and that's a miss. With 3 rifles, we've got 1 miss, 1 hit, and 1 will prompt a return fire. The hit, and that's a kill. Before we return fire, which they would do, I'm going to test the will to fight. That's 1. They aren't at half numbers now, so they will continue. Return fire. The red dice is at the MG carrier. 2 hits on the rifles, and at the MG will just return fire. 2 rifles. 1's knocked out, and 1 will continue. 1 man being knocked out. I'm going to do a will to fight test. And unfortunately that's 0, so in fact that means that unit is going to be withdrawn. Over here my character's moved over to the units for the 2 who dropped back. We'll just do a quick morale test, get them back up and running, and we've got the medic who's actually moved over to these 2 men to see if he can patch them up. 2 men who'd withdrawn, we're using the leader test, and they're going to be fine and to carry on. So that's the end of this particular turn, and the Germans are strong in this position with their MG34. The unit in the building, we had 1 man who ran out of ammunition, so we're just going to try and get that sorted. So they weren't firing. They didn't have a target, in fact, realistically, because the British there had been knocked out. The Vickers machine gun team is in the background, and we've still got a unit in this particular building and a small unit here which are holding their own, and they were successful in managing to shift an MG34 team who've just left 1 man lying there, but they also have their own men in this particular building. So it's all to play for as we move into the next turn. And not totally clear that it's going all the Germans' way. Let's see who can operate, and both can. However, I'd also noticed that we've got a 7 here, and we've got a chance of reinforcements for the Germans. A chance of reinforcements because we got a 7. So we have a campaign of 4, campaign number 4. We're on a patrol, so we're down to 3. So let's see how many 3 or below we get for the Germans. And unfortunately it's 0. And unfortunately we've missed the chance there for German reinforcements. Right, so I'm going to have the Germans dash out of the building and to attack the British. It's actually going to be a 1-to-1 because that's the only amount of space we've got to do that. First, I think we need to do a test to see whether they will go into action. So let's just start with that. A rep of 4, and that should be fine. We're going to start off with the NCO. It's on the left-hand side for the Germans. He has nerves of steel, a 1-to-1 fight, and then we've just got 2 rifles. Now it's 4 onto 4 in terms of rep, and then 3 onto 4, 3 being the Germans. Right, they've both got a +1 to this to start off with because of having bayonets, knives, etc. So let's see the outcome. And I just hesitated there. It means it's a +1 bonus because you start off with the your original rep. You get a +1, so the British were actually looking for 5s. So therefore, both of them got a pass of 2, so it's the same, and they will fight again immediately. And but this time it's a -1, so this time it's a 4 and a 4 for both, which means that in that case again both just get 1. And in this furious action, 3rd time. This time it is going to be 3s, I think. So they're not going to get 4s, which means that both only get 1 again. Well, they must appear exhausted. Now we're down to 2s. Only 1 or 2 will count. And yep, we're right down to the Y. We're now down to 1s. Either of them get a 1. Yes, the German gets a 1. It's the British soldier who goes down first. 2. 5s for the British, 4s for the Germans. And that's the same. There's 4s and 3s. Right, so out of that, the German is killed. And then the last 2 to fight, again, 5s and 4s. So that's the same. 4s and 3s in the second round. And that means it's the British, rather, who is knocked out. So this is the situation, and we have 1 British soldier left. So I think we need to take a will to fight test. His rep is 4, but he's more than half down, I should say. So therefore, he will leave the fight. Okay, after that fighting, the British in the building can certainly see the Germans there and will fire. With the MG team. That's a hit. Okay, it's hit, so we're going to say the NCO first of all is killed. And the 3 rifles around him, 2 are killed and 1 is knocked out because the rep is only 3. Let's take a will to fight test. And that's only 1, however there's only 1 of them, so they're below half, so he'll need to be removed from the board. Right, so that was devastating. We've got the Germans have then been hit by the Bren team from this building opposite, and the British had been well, really wiped out via melee. But as it stands now, we've just got the Germans in this building and the ones further down the road ready to get rid of the British who are defending in the building. Got the medic here working on one of the 2 men who were knocked out, and we need to see whether he's successful with the first one. His rep is 4, so can we pass that here? No, we've only passed it with 1, and therefore we can only try it once with each person, and he will stay knocked out. Right, at this end of the table, the officer has ordered the machine gun team to move into a better firing position and be supported by the rifles. The unit that's in the town hall have gone out the back door and are now moving up to the side of this wall. The British can't fire out of the holes there; they aren't in the right position, and it's going to get there in position in order to see if it can storm the building. We're at the end of turn 8, so now we're turn 9, and it's only the British that can operate. We need to roll to see what the British will do. They're in a defensive position at the moment, and they have passed with a 1, which means they'll stay in that position. Effectively then we go straight to turn 10, and this time the Germans will move, only in the command of my officer character. Now, can the medic do his job this time? Yes, he can, and we've got a man back. Well, the unit here couldn't move because they didn't have the command, so therefore we're going to go on to the next turn. And it's a 7, so we have a chance for reinforcements again for the Germans. Could be decisive. Double 1. That we've passed with 2 for the rep, so certainly I think we've got some German reinforcements coming in. Right, so actually even better for the Germans, because we might well have armour because we rolled a double. Need to roll 1d6 and see what we get. 2. And it is armour. Roll 1d3 to see how many. So that's just a 1. And let's see what type. 3, we've got an armoured car. 4, 5, 6, it's a tank. It's a tank. Let's see whether we get a Panzer 2, 3 or 4. So let's see, based on that, a Panzer 2. Still good enough, I think. And so in the nick of time, we've got a Panzer 2 entering the fray. And I don't think we've got anything with the British to cover that. We've got a Vickers machine gun, but not going to really do a great deal. So for the remainder of the turn, the Germans have moved forward under my character, and there's now a new unit, and we've just left here a machine gun team in position. Germans have moved across in this position to hide up against the side of the building. Roll to see what the British will do. They pass 1, which means they stay in a defensive position as the non-player character. The British, in anticipation of a potential attack, have moved downstairs with the exception of the Bren team, which gives them a good firing position. I haven't done anything with the Vickers machine gun, which has stayed in the same position with an expectation that there's going to be attack across this road. So it does have an angle of fire here, but at least it's getting cover from the building. The Bren team that's actually in the building up at the top can't fire towards the German MG34 because of this cherry tree. So that's the end of turn 11. Okay, and the new turn. So therefore both can operate in terms of my character and the British if they wish. So the Germans get in position, staying in cover next to the main building, with the medic and the radio operator just staying in further cover just behind the steps. Now the British stay in this position, and in fact if I roll, even if I ended up with 2, 1 or 0 in this current position, they will actually stay there. I don't want to move them at all, and so that's the end of this particular turn. Now at the start of turn 13, actually we're in a current position where it's a bit of a stalemate, in that the Germans are in a position where they can attack. They've got 2 units there, but we've also got a full building with the British in it, so it's almost like a game of chess. However, we've got 2 things that can happen. One, I can make a roll and the British or Germans get other reinforcements, or we can also get this tank into action. Okay, so we have a Panzer II, and the significance of that is that in terms of the British we have no anti-tank capability. So if I bring the tank into position, I could just play the game out really, just shelling the building. So I don't really want to do that. So I've had a conversation with John Cunningham, and John suggested some ideas about how we might introduce 1 or 2 rules where the British, if they can, might be able to attack the tank and go through a rule set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this through, and then I'll add it into the NUTS Facebook group, and so you can use the rules yourself. So before we move the tank or anything like that, let's see if we get a roll, see if we get a low double, which means the British might get reinforcements. And no, in this situation it is actually another 7, so potentially there's more reinforcements for the Germans, and we can get that tank into position. Right, so a Panzer II can move up to 24 inches. And so in this particular turn it has, and it's moved right into position. And if you want to pick that up, actually, it's on page 112 of the compendium for the early war Germans. So that's where we've moved into position. So we're going to have our next turn, and then it'll open up on the British waiting for them. So we're coming up to turn 14, and I think this is going to be the last turn in the game. We've got the Germans ready to attack with the infantry, and we've got the tank ready to open fire into this building, and we've got a British force who are going to try and do something very gallant to see if they can act on the tank before they simply get blown away. So let's have a look and see what happens in what I think is going to be our final turn. Right, okay, so that means both are going to operate. We're going to act with our British first of all with this charge of the Light Brigade and see how that works, and then we can see what the rules look like for players in the future. So the British are going to charge out of these buildings and charge against the tank. I know that they will also be fired at by the infantry, but let's just work through the process here with the tank. The first thing we need to do is to pass a test to see if they can charge at all. Yes, they can. So the infantry have come out, they've made a successful charge. The next test is to see whether when they jump onto the tank, the tank crew have a crisis test. Now if they pass the test, then there's no way for the infantry to do anything other than have to fall back, at which point they will be subject to firing from the Germans, and will do that. If they fail the crisis test, and then the tank crew try to come out, at that point they're able to fight in a normal melee. So let's take the test, and in this situation the Germans pass fine. Right, so the British are thrown back with their attack. It's all somewhat to nothing, but it means that the two German units are now also going to charge into attack them. So we need to take two tests for a charge test. The first, the one by the building, the nearest building I should say, is a rep of 4, and then my leader with a rep of 5. So the immediate units, they will charge, and my unit will do likewise. Right, I'm going to say in the commotion of the British being thrown back from the tank and the charges coming in, there's no firing, we're literally just at hand-to-hand combat. Right, starting with the nearest two. So both need 5s to pass, and we've got 2 each, down to 4s, and that means that it's the British soldier who's knocked out. Then got 4 one-to-one engagements. So in that one the British goes down again, and in the next one it's a German success again. Certainly not going well for the British at all. 4th one, and the same again. We've got 2 more one-to-one activities. That one's shared 4s, and shared again. And it's another German victory. And at this rather pitiful moment, I'm going to agree as my character in a British surrender here. So we're going to finish with the Vickers machine gun team not accepting a will to fight and withdrawing, and we have the ultimately we'll have a Bren team and 2 of the British there surrendering. And so there we go. That's the end of another great game of Nuts. I hope adding in the tank at the end was okay. Some thoughts about how we might use that rule, and I'll put that into the Nuts Facebook group and some thoughts in there. And hopefully, you might be able to bring that into your own games as you go. Just want to say thanks very much to well, everybody who's watched, and also everybody who's really building the Nuts Facebook group. That's been really popular, and anybody who wants to join, just go on Facebook. It's just Nuts Man-to-Man Combat, and get yourself join the group and add in the conversation. Finally, I just want to say thanks very much to everybody who has subscribed to the Wargaming World YouTube channel, which now is almost at 1,000 subscribers for this year, which is absolutely fantastic. I really appreciate everybody who's joined, and just want to pass on my thanks. So if you're not a subscriber, then feel free to join, and we'll see you next time.